Today I'm going to be talking about a tool that I built which can help you understand how many villagers you need on each resource to maintain constant unit production. Oftentimes I've found that I haven't known exactly how many villagers I need on a certain resource to keep production running, so I'd have to make a guess, which would usually lead to banking a lot of gold. With this, you can get a really good idea of how many villagers to put on each resource depending on which units you want to be producing. First, I'll go through what everything does. In the top, we have civilization-specific economic bonuses. The Aztec Relic bonus is the only team bonus that affects gather rate of a certain resource, so it gets a toggle since you can combine it with any civ bonus in team games. Selecting a bonus changes the gather rate in the resource display below. For example, we can see how fast Celtic lumberjacks work by choosing it in the select. You can see that it affects the gather rates of all woodcutting. Celts don't actually get two-man saw, but I haven't written data for all the civilization's tech trees yet, so it doesn't factor that in. You can see if I click Aztec relics, it changes the relic gather rate. I got all the gather rates from the Age of Empires fandom wiki. The gather rates are not ever going to be 100% accurate in all situations, and as efficiency of resource gathering decreases due to villager bumping and longer distances, the rates will go down. If you multiply the decimal number by 60, you get the resource per minute, as this decimal is the resource per second. The second number is the resource per minute. I've heard that each relic is equivalent to a Dark Age gold miner, but that's not true. Relics gather 30 gold per minute, whereas Dark Age gold miners only gather 22.8. Relics are more similar to a gold shaft mining gold miner. I've also heard that Indians fishermen have the fastest gather rate for food, but looking at the numbers, as well as testing, reveals that Indian fishers collect around 5 food per minute slower than Mongolian hunters, and that's in the new patch, where Mongols only collect 40% faster instead of 50%. Of course, in an actual game, hunters do a lot more moving around, so I'd say it ends up being pretty comparable. So, let's start with a basic example. If we want to see how many villagers we need to maintain constant villager production, we click the villager and scroll down a bit. We can see the resource cost and training time on the left, as well as the unit icon, civilization, and a multiplier. The civilization select only includes civ bonuses that affect this unit. In the top, we have the villagers required on each resource. The farm indicates no upgrades, and handcart is actually wheelbarrow and handcart, since wheelbarrow is required before researching handcart. We can hover the number to see the partial villagers required, since the big number is rounded up. If we want to see other resources that are not on by default, we can click the resource up in the resource display and it will show up on the unit. The only reason I didn't enable all resources by default is that it gets really cluttered. There's also a description box with random information that I thought of. Let's see what's required to keep up villager production. We'll add sheep, berries, and hunt, as these are relevant to villager creation in the Dark Age. As you can see, we actually need 7 villagers on sheep to maintain villager production, but the number is close enough to 6 that with the starting 200 food, we can make it work with only 6. Except the Chinese, who start with no food. They need 7. If we select the Britons' economic bonus, we'll see that the British shepherds work just as fast as their hunters. Of course, Mongolian hunters are still superior. This tool doesn't calculate how many villagers you need on food if you have a mix of resources, but you can probably take an educated guess based on the numbers shown. We can click the multiplier button to see how many villagers are required to support building multiples of units. As we can see with villagers, we need 7 on farms for 1 villager production, but only 13 farms for 2. This is because we only need 6.25 villagers for 1, which means 12.5 villagers for 2. Another question you might ask is how many villagers on wood do you need to maintain 1 dock fishing ship production? And by selecting the fishing ship, we can see that it takes 5 on wood, working at fairly good efficiency. You'll actually need 7 villagers since you'll need house production as well. Of course, we won't only be needing to create villagers and fishing ships. It's useful to know how to distribute our economy for military as well. Let's show the villager again and add some military. How about 2 archer production? First, we click the archer and then we add 1. Let's turn off hunt, sheep, and berries now. A lot of the hunt will probably be gone at this point in the game, and berries are similar enough to farm collection rate that we can consider them to be functionally the same here. Since archers are built in the feudal age, we'll be using the double bit axe numbers for wood. Since there are upgrades that affect either their resource cost or training time, we have more options to select. For example, if we select the Britain's Team bonus, which makes archery ranges work 20% faster, we can see that we need more villagers on wood and gold to maintain production. Before taking a look at the totals, we'll need to add houses to the list of things we need to build. The code calculates only for constant unit production, so we can probably -1 from wood and that'll still be fine, since we won't be constantly building houses. So let's take a look at the totals for building 1 villager, 2 archers, and houses constantly. Assuming no wheelbarrow, we need 7 farms, 5 on wood, and 7 on gold to keep everything running. That's only 19 villagers. Any additional villagers that are working will be adding to the stockpile to go up to the castle age. If you go for an archer build and the opponent gets ahead in their archer count and you need skirmishers, we can figure out how to rearrange our economy for that. If you just need to add in a few skirms to help, but you still intend to go archers, you can just build skirmishers out of one range and keep the other one producing archers. For that, we'll reduce the archer count by 1 and add a skirmisher. Since skirmishers train quite a bit faster, we actually need more villagers working to maintain their production. It's especially important to take 3 villagers off gold in this situation, otherwise you'll start to have way too much gold. You should have at least 10 farms for this, and you should be sending your newly created villagers to either wood or farms, so switching to skirmishers really only requires you to manage your gold miners. Let's go over one more strategy that this tool can help with: Fast Imp Turk's Bombard Cannon and Hand Cannoneer Rush on Arena. Of course, you should look up a build order to see how to get to Imp, but once you're there, these are the villagers that you need on each resource to keep 1 siege workshop and 3 archery ranges running. 22 on farms, 21 on gold with the gold mining upgrade, and 11 on wood with bow saw. That's 55 villagers if you factor in the 1 that you need for constant house production. You won't have this many villagers when you do a fast imp, so you'll have to rely on banked resources while going up to imp, as well as the villagers that you'll be producing once reaching imp. Alternatively, you could do 3 range arbalist, which requires 7 on farms, 15 on wood, and 20 on gold. This means you only need 43 villagers. Of course, arbalists require crossbowman, arbalist, fletching, bodkin arrow, racer, ballistics, and chemistry to be fully upgraded, whereas hand cannoneers start out that way, apart from the armor upgrades. It could be worth transitioning into arbalist in some situations. Anyways, I haven't included every unit in the game, but if there's enough demand, I'll definitely put some more work into this. You can use this tool yourself at my Heroku page. Check the links in the description. I'll also link my GitHub if you're interested in the code. I made a Twitter account as well, where I'll be posting when I'm streaming since it's integrated into Streamlabs. I'll also post smaller bits of content there. But that's all from me this time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the ladder.